Welcome, everyone. I'm really happy to have you at our May Learn and Share, where we're going to be talking about community engagement. We have two fantastic experts with us today. As a governance and policy expert, Tseguereda Abraham has extensive experience working with communities and WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene, particularly around governance, system strengthening, and advocacy strategy, development, and implementation. She has more than 12 years of leadership experience at different international NGOs, such as WaterAid, Oxfam, and CARE. Hélène Gilkarov is a dedicated professional in transboundary water management, specializing in public participation and stakeholder engagement. She has a strong background in policy and cross-cultural dialogue, and she excels in strategic communication and social media outreach. In her role at the International Commission for the Protection of the Danube River, ICPDR, Hélène is committed to innovating and creatively communicating to ensure stakeholders are engaged and informed about the protection of the Danube River. Her passion lies in strengthening connections between institutions and the public to support inclusive participation in transboundary water management. Welcome to both of you. Tseguereda, I'd like to start with you by asking you, what are the unique aspects or challenges, possibly unique rewards, of doing this type of community engagement when it comes to water, sanitation, and hygiene?
Thank you so much, Catherine. First of all, I want to say that I'm really excited to be part of this conversation and to be part of this community. For me, I think water and sanitation are a priority sector. When conducting need assessment at the community level, we often water, sanitation, and hygiene rank as the top service in many rural areas in the region. And effective water, sanitation, and hygiene wash systems require a substantial investment that exceed household capacity. So households cannot provide these services by themselves. Additionally, wash services necessitate collaboration among various stakeholders. So for my understanding, community engagement in the wash service delivery must be planned from the outset, including site selections or site identification. It can either be a gravity system or a spring tapping. So that has to be done early on. Community contribution has to be decided and planned, service management after construction, and the establishment of accountability mechanisms, for instance, to ensure sustainability. These are really important components for engaging communities in WASH. And WASH services cannot be effectively delivered without the involvement of communities in terms of time, finance, management, from need assessment to follow-up. So from my perspective, a significant challenge in community management within the WASH sector is the engagement often occurs very late in the program, which can be tokenistic, it can fail to ensure genuine participation. This approach really fosters for strong connection between communities, and it doesn't target transformational change. So by transformational change, we mean changes within the community structures. It can be, for instance, challenging gender norms within communities. When executed well, on the other hand, community engagement can empower communities to sustain WASH services and promote lasting social transformation within communities. So if done well, we will achieve transformational change, but it's usually tokenistic and ticking the boxes, and that is the key challenge I can see within the WASH sector.
Thank you. That's really interesting. And Hélène, do you have the same challenges around the tokenism and it coming in late in the process, or what does it look like with transboundary water resource management?
Yeah, thank you, Catherine, and very interesting what Tseguereda had to say. Well, I would say that I'll start with challenges maybe, and to say that you have, especially in a transboundary basin, you have a diverse stakeholder landscape. So in a context like ours, in the Danube River Basin, you're working with dozens of countries, each with their own language, cultural expectations, levels of civil society involvement and development, and institutional frameworks. So that diversity makes this engagement more complex than I think in a single country context. The second challenge that I see is the coordination across governance levels. So you have to align regional, national, and local approaches, and that requires diplomacy and patience. So it's not just about translating languages, but it's also policy priorities and institutional realities. And there's unequal capacity and access also in this transboundary context. And not all stakeholders, especially from local communities or civil society, have the same capacity or resources to participate meaningfully. Ensuring that engagement doesn't reinforce existing inequalities is really a concern for us. But I would also say that there are challenges, but there are also unique aspects and rewards. The first one is definitely collective learning. So you get a unique perspective on how different countries approach the same issue. That opens space for innovation, shared learning, and your role then becomes that you can facilitate the dialogue as a neutral convener. You also need to build trust across borders. So long-term engagement creates relationships, very important, between groups that wouldn't meet otherwise. For instance, I don't know, you'll have a municipality, for example, in Slovakia that will learn directly from someone in Serbia and Romania. And that is really what works well. So we need to facilitate this type of engagement. You need to make sure that people learn from each other, that they can that you're also raising the level playing field. And then I would say something that I would call people-to-people diplomacy. So because at best, transboundary engagement really fosters a sense of shared ownership and identity, especially around something as emotional and as emotionally powerful as a shared river basin. So again, when we engage in outreach activities, for example, for Danube Day, our big flagship event, it's beautiful to see that you have a teacher in Germany that will engage with a volunteer in Moldova, and they both take part in Danube Day. So you see the human side of this international cooperation.
Oh, that's really great. Thank you, Hélène. I appreciate that. What you're kind of saying, right? It gets to the next question I was going to ask, which is sort of what is the most rewarding aspect of working on the community engagement? And you were just saying when it really comes to life, because I think so often these policies and these agreements sound very dry. They're reported in a very dry way. So I will pass that off to Tseguereda, but before I do, Hélène, is there anything else that you wanted to say about kind of what the most rewarding aspect for you is?
For me, the most rewarding aspect is just to sort of look at the results and then say, wow, this is really working, because it's extremely rewarding, that's for sure. But I need to say it is sometimes a bit trying, because you feel that sometimes you're kind of like coordinating a symphony with instruments that haven't quite agreed on the sheet music yet. So that's kind of like, this is how I see it. And we're working again across a very diverse region. So the Danube includes 14 countries, different language, cultures, political systems, ways of working with the public, and also something very relevant to the Danube River Basin. It's also a history of conflicts. So there are no conflicts today, of course, but history remains a really large part of the heritage of this region. So you're not translating words, you're translating expectations, priorities, and institutional habits. I think we live in complicated political times. We are seeing it again and again. So sort of having all this symphonic orchestra together is really something. It's a lot of coordination, but again, it's extremely rewarding. And it's important to make sure that everyone has an equal voice. I mean, I won't get into the GDP and sort of the socio-economic disparities in the region, but just like everywhere else, you have that here. So some countries, some communities might have more resources, stronger civil society networks, or just more experience in engaging in this kind of processes. So part of the job is leveling the playing field a bit and making sure that those with less capacity get heard. That's very important for us, and that's very rewarding. It's hugely rewarding, because when it works, it's beautiful. You get this kind of cross-border learning that you just don't get within one country, and that matters a lot. So and there's something really powerful about people realizing this river is ours together. That's also the motto that we've used, for example, for this year's Danube Day. The motto this year is our Danube, our future. We're all in this together. So again, when people from different backgrounds celebrate Danube Day or contribute to our activities, it just fosters a shared identity. It goes beyond politics, and then you see real people-to-people diplomacy at work.
Oh, that's wonderful, Hélène. Thank you. Tseguereda, what would you say about the most rewarding aspect is?
Yeah, I agree with Ellen. The community engagement is extremely rewarding. For me, it provides a unique perspective, one that no power analysis or literature review can provide. Because through community engagement, we will tap into the experience of the communities themselves, recognizing strands of collective engagement and those directly affected by the issue we aim to address will be part of the program or whatever we are doing. So this shared experience will allow us to learn from past efforts, because communities will not start when we engage them. They will have a history of past efforts, understanding of what succeeded and what failed. So it's really important to bring that on board. It's really important that they are part and at the center of what we do. I believe that meaningful community engagement is the most effective and efficient way to deliver a program. So it will enable us as external actors, because after all, we are external actors, to gain a deeper understanding of the context which we are working. So I totally agree with Ellen. This is really rewarding, but it's also the only way to deliver sustainable programming in our region.
Thank you. And I know we're going to be close on time, so Tseguereda, I'd ask you to answer just what is the most helpful piece of advice you would have for someone who's starting to work on community engagement?
Yeah, one critical advice I will give is for people working with communities to take time to listen and understand. Do not rush the process. Communities, as Ellen said before, are not homogeneous groups, and effective engagement will require trust building. It requires also multiple interactions and understanding of internal, often informal dynamics, because there will be a dynamics within the community. If there are resistant groups, it's essential to understand the root causes of their resistance and make sure that we work towards a common agenda, common agreement. So it's really important to take time. Process do not need to be rushed. It's important to listen and understand.
So can I ask, because I think when people hear that, take time to listen, they don't always realize exactly how much time experts in the field mean. So can you tell us, what do you think is that? I mean, you talked at the beginning, it's not just one meeting. Is this an extra 6 months at the beginning of the project? Could it last a year? How long will this time to listen, what should we consider when we're putting together or designing a project?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. It depends. It depends on how much we believe that people are on this together. We have reached a consensus. Just to give a very quick example to illustrate this, in one of the projects I was working in a community where we delivered water and sanitation services, community living upstream frequently damaged pipes, so hindering downstream communities from accessing water. And this happened even before we intervened, multiple times when other organizations were trying to deliver wash in the same area. So we decided to stop any service delivery until we understood the root causes. And we facilitated a number of negotiations between the two communities so that they agree on what the downstream communities and upstream communities will need to give up. I mean, some negotiations on shared agreement. And we waited until that agreement was reached, and having different committee members discuss this. Although this approach took more time, as you said, Catherine, it ultimately proved to be successful. So until we think a consensus is reached, then key community groups have been part of the discussion. So it depends on the context.
No, I think that's a great answer. I just think that it is something that sometimes people, when they're putting projects together or they're having conversations with donors, right, they just trying to get people to understand that's not a quick turnaround. So thank you for that wonderful example. And then do you want to share quickly your most helpful piece of advice for those starting on community engagement?
I would just say understand, sort of do a reconnaissance work, like really try to understand the field. Where are you working? Who are you working with? Create also I think very often in a multi-governance structure, some voices get diluted. You've got to make sure that these voices have their say. You have to create mechanisms. So we work with mechanisms like public consultations, regional workshops, and we really try to design them in a way that they're not just ticking a box type of thing. And also, I would say create multiple channels for local input. That's also very important. So again, from public consultations to storytelling campaigns, we have our outreach event every year, Danube Day, so the Day of the Danube. But we also have the Danube Art Master competition, which is a way for young people to sort of express their relationship to the water through art. And we also have now, we are engaging now with citizen science activities. So what we are trying to do with those activities is to bypass those formal structures and to bring in voices through creative and often more accessible means, also social media activities. And I would say it's also, you have to be, so you've sort of like recognize who you're working with, and then you have to be intentional about bridging this gap. So it's not enough to just invite a local actor to a big event. You want that local actor to stay, to speak, to listen, to be ready to hear things that he or she might not want to hear. And you want to provide context, structure, support, a seat at the table so that people understand that their input is valued. And I would say also, what I would say is also very important is that we understand that we're not just doing this for the record. That because, policies must include global and local perspectives. That's very important. This is the only way, in my opinion, they will succeed. So communities, they're on the front line of implementing environmental policies. So their buy-in is really crucial. And that's something that policymakers and the communities themselves have to understand.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for all of this. It's been a really great conversation.